you. Minister, in the immediate aftermath of the election, the now Taoiseach Micheál Martin said that there was an urgent need to provide the country with a functioning government. And in outlining the many reasons why that was needed, he spoke very passionately about parents of children with a disability who must fight to secure a place each September for their children in primary and secondary school. Many parents of children with special needs are facing considerable difficulties in securing these places for their children, and often when they do get on the list, they have been waiting many, many years. I recently met with ASD Education for Finglas and heard the harrowing stories of parents who were left in the dark, who had to scramble around contacting different schools, who often resorted to begging school principals. And in my own constituency, Minister, Dublin North West, there is a severe lack of ASD places both at primary and secondary school. At primary level, there was one specialised class in the entire Dublin 11 area, and that includes 19 primary schools. Yet there's only 3 ASD units in that area. At second level, the situation is even worse. There's 7 second level schools in the area and only 1 has an ASD unit. And many parents are forced to send their children to education providers outside the area, and that deprives children from growing up in the community where they have so many other resources. So, as I know you believe, Minister, we do need to incentivise more schools to provide ASD units, and I know that often, particularly in a DESH area, makes schools fearful about the resources that they have. But I'd ask that the Department produce a 5-year forecast of the current and future need of special needs education places in the catchment area for each school, and to communicate that to the schools. Now, I know, Minister, under the Education Act, under Section 37A 1998, you can direct a school to provide additional provision where all reasonable efforts have failed. And I appreciate that we have to exhaust that process first. And the legislation has been used to good effect in the recent past in South Dublin, and I praise you and your department for that work. But many people in my constituency, Minister, are asking if it was appropriate to take that action on the south side of the city, can similar action be taken on the north side? And I'd urge you to assist these parents in any way possible, Minister.
Thank you. May I take this opportunity to congratulate you on your appointment, Chair, as well. I'd like to thank the Deputy for raising this issue, as it gives me an opportunity to outline the current position regarding provision for children with special needs, including autism. And enabling children with special education needs, including autism, to receive an education appropriate to their needs is a real priority for Government and for me as Minister with responsibility for special education. And currently we know there's almost 20% of the total education budget, or 1.9 billion, is invested in supporting children with special needs. And as a result, the numbers of special education teachers, special needs assistants and special class and school places are at unprecedented levels. Provision in our 124 special schools has increased from 6,848 placements in 2011 to 7,872 this year. And nationally, 167 new special classes opened in the 2019-20 school year, which means there are 1,618 special classes in place compared to 548 in 2011. So where new special education places are opened, there is a menu of supports provided to schools by the Department, including additional teachers, special needs assistants and professional development. But notwithstanding the extent of this investment, there are some parts of the country where increases in population and other issues have led to a shortage of school places for children with special educational needs. And the NCSE has responsibility overall for coordinating and advising on the education provision for children nationwide, and it has well-established structures in place for engaging with schools and parents. The NCSE seeks to ensure that schools in an area can, between them, cater for all children who have been identified as needing special class placements. And normally, special class and special schools places are established with the full cooperation of the schools in areas where they are required. However, as the Deputy quite correctly pointed out, there are some parts of the country where the NCSE has faced challenges in getting schools and their patrons to provide new special class or indeed special school places. And I know that this can cause much anguish for parents and families involved. And as Minister, Again, the Deputy pointed out, I do have power under Section 37A of the Education Act to direct a school to provide additional provision where all reasonable efforts have failed. And the legislation contains a procedure through which the capacity of schools in an area can be tested and through which ultimately a ministerial direction can be made requiring a school to make additional special education provision available. And while I'm prepared to use the legislation when necessary to ensure that children can access a suitable education, my preference is for schools to engage with this challenge on a voluntary basis, because it is the right thing to do for the children in their community. You might know, Deputy, that the legislation was used for the very first time in 2019 in the Dublin 15 area, and significant progress has been made in that area on foot of action taken under Section 37A, and a new special school was established there, and 6 schools also agreed to open special classes, thereby meeting the need for additional places in the area. And the experience, I think, of Dublin 15 shows the real and practical challenges that can be addressed by working together to provide additional special class and special school places. And the Deputy might also be aware that my department and the NCSE is also continuing its engagement with schools, patron bodies, parents and others across South Dublin to bring the required additional special class and special school placements on stream. This work is ongoing. And in relation to Dublin North West, the NCSE has advised that there are currently 9 primary and 3 post-primary ASD classes established in the area. Just to finish, Chair, St Paul's Special School in Beaumont also caters for students with ASD. And in addition, the NCSE has established 3 new primary ASD classes and 2 new post-primary ASD classes for the coming school year. Thank you.
The replies?
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
You can come.
Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And I think at the heart of your reply and the experience of any parent that sits before us at a clinic explaining the real urgency and frustration they have is the issue of transparency. Many of them don't feel part of the process, they feel they are subject to the process. Many of them don't feel that there's transparency about how a school is established, how an ASD unit is established and how that school avails of that process. What I think we really need to do also is, Minister, is take into account the needs of the schools. Many of the schools I'm talking about are in a DESH area. They have significant challenges, often low enrolment numbers, members of parents that might have an addiction, members of the minority communities. We have to do all we can to support those schools to opt in and to provide an ASD unit. So I urge the Minister and her officials to do 2 things. One, to help us exhaust the process of all reasonable efforts within the legislation, within her department for the Dublin 11 area. If you're saying at this point you don't believe that there's a need, then that's a separate argument we can have. But if there is a need, we need to exhaust all reasonable efforts, hopefully provide the places during that period. And if we can't provide them, then I will be coming back to you to urge you to direct the schools in the area to provide those ASD places.
Thank you, Deputy, and I can reassure the Deputy, particularly in relation to the legislative process that is underway, that it is fully transparent and is published on the departmental website, so you can look at that at any stage. But I don't disagree with you. I'm aware of the fact that there is one particular child in Dublin North West who's looking for a place, and I know that the NCSE, the National Council for Special Education, is engaging with the parents of this child on a regular basis. There is, I have to say, Deputy, and it's not ideal, but there is an interim measure of home tuition. There is a home tuition scheme. There's about 20 hours per week for a child over the age of 3 and 10 hours per week for a child under the age of 3. But that is only an interim measure. And it's something I'm very mindful of as the very first dedicated Minister for Responsibility for Special Education, that not having a school place, which to me is a fundamental right for every child in this country, and there has to be equal opportunity, whether a child has special needs or no special needs. And I'm determined to set out how I'm going to achieve that. And I know that you mentioned earlier in relation to forecasting, and I think there is a forecasting model that we're working on within the department, which I hope will tackle this perennial problem, because it's not just this year, it happens in other years as well. Now, there are sometimes extenuating circumstances during the year why a child may suddenly need a place. So sometimes a new professional report can suggest a change in the type of placement required. Sometimes the parents decide that their child should remain in early years, and sometimes parents opt for a mainstream class as an option instead of a special class or special school. And this therefore then means that what pops up is an additional place that a child needs. So it's not as straightforward as one would like to think. I would have been of the same view myself until I came into this department, but I am determined to assist in any way that I can.
Thank you very much, Minister.